Hello stitching friends, and welcome to Floss Tube episode 51. I'm Susan, and this is Susan Standley Stitch in Time, and I'm so happy to have you here with me today. I welcome all of you who are coming back, and thank you to the new subscribers and people following this channel. We have exciting, fun things we're doing here, and I'm so pleased to have you joining me. On this channel, as you know, I like to talk about cross stitch, quilting, and textiles, notions and sewing methods from the past, mostly the 19th century. And I also share my projects with you, and I have quite a bit to share today. We're going to look at what's in my sewing basket, in other words, my whips, because I have whips of many genres. I have a few new acquisitions that I think you're going to enjoy learning about if you don't know about them already. I do have a new chapter in the story of Corliss, and for those of you who are new, that Corliss is the little girl from Louisville, Kentucky, who is learning to sew in 1870. We're going along with her on her adventure. She's a creation of historical fiction that I've put together to help us learn and experience her life. And then I have a shop update at the end, and I have broken my video my videos up into chapters. For those of you who maybe are pressed for time and just want to look at a section, or want to go back and hear Corliss's story again, or maybe thought you didn't anyway. So the chapters are there, and I hope they're helpful to you. And before I start today, I do want to pay a tribute to the most beautiful woman who passed away this last week, Daleen Wilson of SewGrateful. She was a floss tuber. She lived near me up here in the Pacific Northwest. When I first started Floss Tube, she reached out to me immediately. She sent me cards when my father passed away. I mean, she's just a lovely, lovely person. She was kind and generous and encouraging and so positive. I'll never forget her videos. They always made me happy. She shared baked goods. She shared her gorgeous garden and her produce that she was so good at growing, and she shared with people in need. One of my favorite memories of Daleen is when she put together birthday parties in a box for the food bank. And she put together everything you would need to create a really happy birthday for a child. And she was a special person, and she will be very missed. And Becca of Sambry Stitches and Jen of, I'll link it below. I'm going blank. They are hosting a stitch along in honor of Daleen. And if you knew her, you'll know that this is a good way to process your grief. And if you didn't know her, I think her videos are still up. You can still meet this lovely lady. So let's get started. So let's take a look at my whips. And as you know, my sewing basket and my whips and my projects are deep, and some of them go on for years, and you know, I'm okay with that because it's all about the process, and I enjoy really getting into my projects and connecting with them. And I know those of you who stitch probably can relate. I'm sure if you're watching this, you have that same feeling of feeling like you've really given a piece of yourself to your project. So, all right. Having said that, my son got married this summer, and I am still working on finding out and creating a quilt for him and his wife. And that's a process too, because for people who don't enjoy needlework or quilt or sew, it's hard to really pull out their taste and come up with something that they will really like, because they don't always have a way of envisioning the final project. So we're still working on that, and I'll keep you posted. It might be a little bit drip, drip, drip here and there of finally figuring out what it is they want. So that's definitely something on the kind of simmering on the stove here to say. As you know, I've been working on this little stitch by Scattered Seed Samplers, the little pear pin keep, and it's super cute. And I was inspired by a piece of fabric that in my sewing room, and I decided to change the colors a little bit, and then I came up with an idea for a finish. And so if you've been with me, you know that I kind of sampled out some colors based on the fabric that I want to use for finishing. I started stitching it and I went, no, I have to revamp this a little bit. So here's my finish, and here is some trim and the fabric that I'm hoping to use for the finish. And I'm hoping to have this for you to see next time. It's a little bit of a challenging finish that I'm wanting to do, but I'm pretty pleased with it. I think it complements the fabric beautifully and doesn't take away from the fabric. I think they play really well together, and I think the trim is neutral enough that it will just enhance the finish. And so, oh boy, if life goes the way I plan it to go, I will be able to show this to you and talk you through it. And of course, yes, those of you who have asked, I'm happy to share the conversion. I did some shading, I changed it up, and I think the design is adorable, and I think the way it was originally stitched is adorable. I just wanted to make it work with this fabric. So that's one thing that I've been working on. And summer's a busy time. I have a garden. I've got my fingers in a lot of projects and activities. I have things I'm planning for you. So, I'm slow and I'm deliberate, and I'm totally okay with that. I enjoy the process so very much that it's worth it to me. Okay, I have something else to show you. Where did that go? Hold, please. Oh, here it is. I put it on the floor. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I told you that I was going to start this, and I don't know that I had started it when we saw each other, but there's a Daleen downloadable chart from Sub Rosa, and this girl here was kind of what sucked me in, and I saw a finish, and I will link the name of the Instagrammer who posted their finish. I didn't write it down, and I'm going blank. And I thought of Laura Duet of Maud and Mozart of Brenda and the Serial Starter, because she wanted to make a bowl of girls. And so I think some other people, Katie has stitched one, I think other people are stitching one. So I started my girl, and she's almost done. I'm using 103, which I haven't used a lot, and I'm really enjoying it, and I pulled the colors out. I wanted the girl on the tomato girl to kind of complement this quilt, because I want her to be down in this is my stitching chair. This is where I do most of my handwork, and I wanted her to be down here with me while I was sewing. So, and I will finish her probably dimensionally, I don't know. But I picked kind of probably too dark of a linen, but it's okay. And she's not done. I still need to do her hair. I've been debating whether or not I want her to be a blonde or a brunette or what, but so I don't know if that's showing up. So her skin tone is very similar to this. It's kind of blending. We'll see when I get her hair on. I might have to redo her skin tone a little bit. I think because this linen, and it's a mystery piece, I think it's a 40 count. The 103 worked well on it and gave good coverage. I think because the color it's pretty dark actually, or it's kind of a medium, and so this skin tone is blending right in, and I think blonde hair would blend in as well. So I think she's gonna get black hair, just like the original. Anyway, so that's what I have so far. My favorite colors combination, blue, green, and red. I couldn't I couldn't stay away from it. I still have to put the little details on her dress. So not a ton of stitching, but then I started thinking about how I was going to finish her, and I'm not totally sure yet. I do have, I have my general store number 3 collection. I think there's a few left if anybody wants one, but I think there's this fabric in here, this blue right here, I think might work really well for the finish. Even though the red is really strong tomato red, I think I'll like it. I don't need it to have a red in the fabric, but the blues play well together and the pink. So that's what I've been up to in my stitching world anyway. And I have been working on Corliss's quilt and the border that I chose. And I'm going to share that later in this episode with you. So stay tuned if you want to hear more about that. And then I posted on Instagram I came by this, honestly, I decided I needed a way to keep track of Corliss's story. And for those of you who are new, Corliss, like I said in the intro, is this young girl that I've crafted. She's fictional, but she's based on what I know and what I've learned about history and sewing during the 19th century. And this year I'm focusing on 1870. Now this is Corliss. And you can go into previous episodes. I've created a playlist, and it has all the episodes that discuss Corliss. And because there are chapters in the episode, you can just forward to the chapter and listen to her story if you want to hear all the backstory. But, I was almost losing track of her story because it was getting kind of big. And then I thought I need to write it down. And then it kind of snowballed into this book that I'm crafting, which is kind of a paper craft scrapbook of Corliss Mary. And it's going to contain all the girls as they go through their stitching journeys. And now I don't consider myself an expert crafter, paper crafter by any stretch of the imagination, but I do love, it's another way to play with color and texture. And so I started putting together, I had to start with Mary, our little girl from last year. And I had to start putting together the story so I could keep track of it and keep it in sequence. And then it became something that, it was way too fun, and I had to embellish the pages. And I'm adding actual scraps of fabric. I'm adding pictures from my research and pictures that I shared on my episodes and on my Stitched Stories episodes. And the words are actually just print out of and cut and paste of my Floss Tube episodes. And so each topic that we talked about, dress, the life of a dressmaker, the area that these little girls were from. Now Mary was from St. Louis, Missouri, and so this was her doll quilt. And I still have people joining that adventure, and I'm so thrilled. I still have some kits, and I'm going to keep making kits as long as people are interested. People are still enjoying learning to stitch and do patchwork the way it was done in 1840, as close of approximation as I could get in these modern times. But this has been just a really great way, so that, we're getting through Mary, and some pages have a lot of pictures, and some pages have, places where I can add more. Anyway, it's just become a thing. I did sort of a chapter on the Mississippi River because Mary's life was heavily influenced by that. And then we get into Corliss. Let's see, there's Miss Corliss. Okay. And so this might not flow completely through. We might jump in, and Farabee might appear at some point, but it's been really fun, and it's one of those things I could really get into this. I love, I do like calligraphy and pen and ink, and I like drawing, and I I'm enjoying it, and it's fun to find pictures that relate to the topic. Let's see, what's one of my favorite pages? One of my favorite pages, well, there's just when we started talking about hexagons, and this little girl, it's a fictional life, it's a romanticized version of life, but it does tell a story, and it gives us a little bit of a taste of how challenging it was to do the things that we do so easily today. We have so many tools and so much at our disposal to make what we do just much easier. So let's see. And I've got Corliss serving, she served tea in one episode, so I got some pictures of tea. And I thought, in my future kits, I might include some paper ephemera that relates to this. Let me know. I mean, it's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. This was just talking about the dress and the style of dress during her time. I actually put in a hexagon flower that I didn't think I was going to use in her quilt. I actually glued that in. Now this is a really good multimedia art journal. Let me know if you have any suggestions, because I know a lot of you out there are much more experienced than me in this. If you have suggestions for products and things I can use, or if you're at all interested, I will do I'll do a video just on this where I show you all the pages. And if you want to try it and do it yourself, you could combine her story with your own story. You could have opposing pages where Corliss or Mary talks about their life, and then you say, okay, I tried the 4 patches using the folding over Lancastrian method, and wow, it wasn't as easy as I thought, or whatever. Because as you know, I love people to document their story, because that's what we leave behind. We leave behind our work, but there's mystery behind that unless we leave behind words to support our work. So anyway, that's been a lot of fun, and definitely something I could have invested a lot of hours in, and so I had to kind of limit myself. All right, so that's what I've been working on. Let's move on now to my new acquisitions, my haul. For those of you who follow me, you know that my haul frequently involves books. I am an avid book collector and reader of historical textile information. So I have 2 today to share with you that I think you might, if you're along for the ride with this journey of early stitching, you might want to consider adding to your library. And this is just purely, I'm not making money off these books. This is just purely me sharing good finds. Now, next month is Sampler September, so there's going to be a lot of stitching haul going on, and probably some fabric haul. We'll see. The first book I want to share with you is by Hilary Davidson, and it's called Jane Austen's Wardrobe. And you might think, well, Susan, why in the world are you interested in a book about Jane Austen's wardrobe? Well, first of all, who isn't curious about Jane Austen? She was such an interesting person, and the reason we know so much about her is she was a prolific writer and told her story. And she lived in the early part of the 1800s, and I don't have a girl set in that time period yet, but I think in the future there will be a girl learning to sew in that time period. And so Hilary Davidson is a textile historian, and she has gone through Jane Austen's letters. And in Jane Austen's letters, of which there are many, I think over 300, she has gone through the letters and found every notation or every explanation or description of a clothing item that Jane is currently wearing or that somebody she knows wore. And so scattered throughout the book are these beautiful fashion block prints from that time period. So we're showing the actual illustrations of these gowns, and also shoes and jewelry. And so she took the quote out of Jane's letter, and she found a garment that fit that description as close as she could, and then put it in under the quote, and then proceeded to describe the fabric, the fashion, the style, the way it was constructed. And she just marches through all these letters, and she said in the opening, it's like peeking into Jane's wardrobe, into her closet, and I just thought that was delightful. So these are not actually Jane's clothes, but you can see that it shows a variety of styles and fashions. And according to Hilary Davidson, Jane tried hard to be in fashion. You know, she tried to stay up with fashion and not, she probably wasn't at the tip top of fashion, but she was right in there with it. Look at this gorgeous, rich brown. So it's just been, I was surprised. You know, I don't consider myself a costumer or anything, but of course she's talking about fabric. She's talking about style. She gets into the different caps and head garments that were worn in that time, and when and where and why you'd wear them. And of course, Jane has written about these. So I think, I don't document my clothing, believe me, not at all. I can barely keep up with my projects, but you know, it's just, it's fascinating. Jewelry. Anyway, I think if you're at all interested in Jane Austen, if you're interested in textiles, that 1830s time period, I think you would really, this is a very quality book, and it has some good references, resources in the back for additional learning. So I highly recommend that. And I will link the title and the author below, and if I can't remember where I got it, but if I remember that, if I can find that out, I will link that as well. And then because my girls this year, Farabee and Corliss, are from Kentucky. They're set in Kentucky. I had a couple smaller books, but I got this nice publication of Kentucky Quilts and Quiltmakers, 3 Centuries of Creativity, Community, and Commerce. And this is by Linda Elizabeth LaPinta. And this book is born out of the quilt documentation programs that I've talked about before on my channel. It's something I had the privilege of being a part of earlier in my life, and I tell you what, it was probably some of the most fulfilling work. It was all volunteer, there was no pay. It was some of the most fulfilling work and experience I've ever had, meeting people and hearing their story about their textiles that had been passed down, sometimes for generations. And so this is the story of Kentucky and the quilts that, a little bit about the history of Kentucky itself, and then a story about the quilts that are in the Kentucky museums and private collections that have come in. And anyway, because my girls are set in Kentucky, I found this particularly delightful and important. And I think I appreciate that quilters have taken the time to really focus on different regions and different states and learn about things that were particular to those areas. I am very excited that this week Tisha Wynn of Thistle Threads posted a video with Dr. Lynette Anderson, and she is starting a sampler documentation project, or I think it's already in the works, and I'm going to link that episode below. You can watch it because this is going to start, or is ongoing now, for samplers. Because samplers, you know, it's harder to find information on samplers. I can go to the Quilt Index, housed at the Michigan State University, and I can type in Kentucky Quilts 1870, and I can see a ton of information. And there really hasn't been, that I know of, a resource for samplers, especially in America, regionally, to really research them and look them up regionally. So I am really excited about this work. And again, I think it's all volunteer. It's just getting going. But oh boy, won't that be neat to be able to type in a region and an area and then do some comparison between these textiles. So those are my 2 books. My library is getting full. My bookshelves are bursting, but you know what? It's always good. A good book is never wasted. So let's take a look now at an update on Corliss's life. I want you to settle in. This will not really provide, I'm not going to show you any visuals. This is a time where you can just stitch and look down at your work, and you don't have to look up at all for anything. And just let the pictures of your own creation in your mind happen, and as you listen to the update on Corliss. Okay, the next chapter in Corliss is Corliss begins her trousseau quilt and visits a general store, July 1870. Corliss and Sarah Jane left school together in the afternoon and walked home with their books and lunch sacks. Both girls wore a sunbonnet to keep the sun off their face. They were both going to Aunt Edith's house, as Sarah Jane's mother was visiting. This time of the afternoon sun was already intense, and the ground was very dry and dusty. As Corliss and Sarah Jane opened the back door of the kitchen, they heard happy, animated voices coming from the drawing room. Each girl hung up their bonnets and washed their hands quickly and ran in to see what was happening. Corliss was greeted by Aunt Edith and a few of the ladies from the sewing circle. She curtsied and said hello to each guest as she had been taught before. Aunt Edith invited her to sit down. "You both look flushed," said one of the ladies as she fanned her forehead. She didn't know if she was expected to get her hexies out to sew too. She and Sarah Jane both spied a plate with some pieces of pound cake. Aunt Edith noticed this and invited the girls to get a plate and have some too. When they were both settled back, Aunt Edith explained to Corliss that it had come to their attention that Corliss had not begun her trousseau. Corliss didn't know what a trousseau was, and she didn't understand exactly what was expected of her. Normally, a young woman would have had several items completed by 12 years old. For example, Sarah Jane had a 9-patch and a 4-patch quilt top already completed for her trousseau. Corliss, due to losing her mother and the recent war, had not had the chance to begin. The trousseau items were expected to serve a young girl for her lifetime and set up her household in her future. The ladies were busy discussing where Aunt Edith should begin. Before Corliss left to set up her own household after marriage, she was expected to have 12 quilt tops and one that was fully quilted to be her bridal quilt when she was engaged. Some other items she was expected to have were 6 muslin chemises, 6 pairs of muslin drawers, 6 pair of linen drawers, 2 plain skirts, 3 tucked skirts, night dresses, corset covers, linen bed sheets, linen napkins, toweling, and the list went on. Corliss wasn't sure if she felt dizzy from the heat or from the work that she was facing. One of the ladies suggested visiting the general store for the items Corliss might need when the time came for her to set up her own household. She had heard they were outfitting travelers heading west with sets of household items, minus the quilts. The local store had been quite lacking in product during the war and for a few years after, but by 1870, new merchandise was flowing in and the town was benefiting from the prosperity that came with the rebuilding. Finally, Aunt Edith said, patting her hand, "You have done such a lovely job on your hexagons, Corliss. I think we should use them to begin your first quilt." Miss Ida suggested a medallion quilt. She felt it would help Corliss put the quilt together in stages and learn new skills along the way. She explained that this type of quilt began in the center and consisted of several frames or borders that were placed around the center until it reached the desired size. Miss Ida offered to show Corliss her own medallion quilt made by her grandmother when she was in England and brought to Kentucky by Miss Ida's mother when she and her husband settled there. She invited Corliss and Aunt Edith to come calling to see the quilt and gather ideas from the way it was put together. Up until this point, Corliss had only been using scraps given to her by Aunt Edith and the ladies of the sewing circle. She had enjoyed each piece of fabric and the combinations she had created. The girls cleared the dishes and Aunt Edith saw the ladies out. Then they went back into the kitchen to start dinner. As they were cooking, she suggested Corliss should write to her father and ask if he expected the harvest to be a good one come August, and if so, could she have some money for a trunk for storing her trousseau. Corliss thought that was really a lot, but she determined to mention this in her letter to her father this week. The next morning was a Saturday, and the sun was high in the sky as they walked into town. Aunt Edith and Corliss each carried a basket. Corliss couldn't imagine what beautiful things she might see. The town area was bustling with activity. There were carriages, wagons, and riders on horses in the street trying to get to their destination. They passed one shop which had a tinsmith banging a piece of tin out as he turned it carefully to shape. Another had a rope maker with coiled stacks of rope in different sizes and all types, all over the floor and hanging on the walls. Corliss could smell the hemp, and it made her think of her father and home. She could hear a group of workers out back. They were chanting a song in rhythm as they twisted the hemp strands in concert, making rope. As they passed through the threshold, the general store was full of commotion. A large group of women were gathered around a table. Some people on the outside of the circle were leaning in to see. A shop clerk sat behind the table wearing a striped apron, and she was demonstrating a machine that sewed cloth. Corliss and Aunt Edith both stopped to listen to the sound as she turned the hand crank. The sewing machine, as the lady called it, would save time on chores and allow the woman of the house to focus her attention elsewhere. There were gasps from the crowd when she announced the cost, a mere $125. Aunt Edith decided it was time to move over to the fabric. The wall of fabric was beautiful. There were stacks of every color, black prints with red, purples, Prussian blue, indigo, madder, greens of all shades, light aqua, and pink, all neatly folded on the shelves. There were prints with stripes and paisley, along with shirting fabrics bearing tiny designs. Corliss was especially drawn to the fabrics with flowers. And Edith asked the shop girl to cut 1.5 from one border stripe that had particularly caught her eye. The fabric was 24 inches wide, the exact size of the loom used to weave it. She turned to Corliss and said, "Perhaps this will work into the hexie quilt we'll need to see." After it was cut, the woman wrapped the fabric in brown paper and tied it with a string. "Anything else, ma'am?" the clerk asked. And Edith said she wanted to see what kind of toweling they had in stock. The clerk reached under the counter and asked, "Cotton, hemp, union, or pure linen?" And Edith said she wanted to see huckaback, made from linen and hemp. There were 6 large rolls of toweling to look at, laid on the cutting counter. Corliss watched as Aunt Edith fingered each and every piece. "What is the price of this one?" she asked, gesturing to the huckaback cloth, which was 50-50 blend of cotton and linen. The clerk checked and replied, She turned to Corliss. I think this will do to start making dish towels. This combination of fabric will last forever. I'm buying enough for my house and yours in the future, as I need to replace some. You can monogram and hem them for both of us. As she turned back to the clerk, and Edith said, I will take 10 yards of this. This purchase too was wrapped up in tissue and then brown paper. From there, they moved over to the vegetables and staple goods, such as sugar, coffee, and spices, making their selections from Aunt Edith's list. Both baskets were loaded with their purchases. Corliss used the string as a handle for the fabrics as she walked home with Aunt Edith, whilst the basket was in the crook of her other arm. The saltwater taffy Aunt Edith had purchased for her was refreshing, and she was so excited about what she had seen and couldn't wait to get started on her first trousseau quilt. So now we're updated with Corliss. She's moving on to the next stage of her stitching journey, and we'll have more next time. I'd like now to share with you some shop updates that I'm really excited about, and I'm thrilled to share with you, and I hope you enjoy hearing about them too. For those of you who were with me when I launched the Mary 1840 project, you know that in that project, it took place in 1840, and I tried to stay as true to the time period with the methods and the materials as possible. Now, Corliss is in 1870, and many of the methods would have been similar, but I'm now offering this course with Corliss using the option of some more modern methods. And if you've been joining me on making hexagon flowers, there are still people trying the starter kit. You'll be able to jump into this first part of Corliss's Trousseau Medallion quilt easily. You'll already have a great foundation for that. There's a couple things I want to make you aware of. On my website, I do have a download section. And in the download section, I have a print, something that you can print out. It's a PDF, it's free. It's a printout that you can make, copy or print out for yourself that gives you the steps to put your hexagons together in a written format. I understand everyone has a learning style that is preferred. Some people are visual, some people like to have hands-on, some people like to listen. So I'm trying to tailor things so it meets the needs of everyone. I'm also going to link below a free paper downloadable. It is not from my website, it's from another website, and I will link the website to you. And it's hexagon graph paper. So I've had people ask me, what do I do with my flowers? Well, I'm going to offer an option here with this next thing I'm going to tell you about. I'm super excited. Of course, it's Corliss's story. But if you'd like to branch out on your own and do your own thing, this is a great way to graph out your idea and help you. It will help you plan, because it's amazing how things shift around and don't always fit. It's like fitting a puzzle together if you haven't ever done it before. So I am super excited to bring to you the Corliss Trousseau 1870 medallion quilt. And as I mentioned in Corliss's story, a medallion quilt is something that is built from the center out, and it's built by frames. And these quilts were started in England, and they called them frame quilts, and they came to America, and of course the tradition continued, and they are typically called medallion quilts in the United States, but either term works. So Corliss is going to start her medallion quilt, and of course it's going to start with her hexagons. And I've been teasing you on Instagram and showing you my hexagons and how I put them together. And then I showed you the border that I was going to add. And so now I'm going to put a picture in, or a little short video in, of the border I added and how I used mine, because what fabric color I chose. Now, I think both choices are beautiful. I think the green and the blue are both gorgeous. So I will be offering both, but let me put this little video in of the one that I chose. All right, so you can see I chose the green, and really it was, it was a huge toss-up. They're both beautiful, and they both do a little bit of a different thing to the center. And if you decide to do this project with me, your center may turn out completely differently. And just like Mary, I have several, well, not just like Mary, but like Mary, I'm offering a PDF pattern for $5, downloadable on my website, with a video, that link that I will send to you as soon as you make your purchase. And the video link will be me as if I'm with you, sitting with you, talking you through the pattern. All right, it's not really a tutorial. I think the pattern gives you all the steps. I've printed out the patterns, and this is kind of what it looks like. And so you have lots of pictures and lots of descriptions of the steps to put the center medallion together. So if you would like to do that, you are welcome to use your own fabric and purchase the PDF and video attachment and get on your way. If you are curious about 1870 fabrics and the colors, which are probably maybe not what you expected, at least the palette I chose is very vibrant and rich. You can also purchase kits. And so let me talk you through all of the options, because there are several, and they are all on my website, and you can listen to this and think about what option works best for you. So I'm currently offering the center medallion, which is part 1, which is the hexagons, as a PDF with a video attachment for $5. Okay, that's option 1. And then I am offering the PDF and video for attaching the border, which involves applique and mitering. And so that is another option, and that is also another $5 purchase you can go get. And this is great if you have your own fabrics that you want to use. It's also great if you decide to buy a kit. Okay, so those are options. The next option is to buy the fabrics that I have carefully collected and selected. And some of these fabrics are out of print. They're treasures. They were from my collection, and they are specifically designed so that you create an 1870s look to your quilt. Now, this is what it looks like when you order it. There are 52 fabrics in here, and it's more than enough to make the center medallion. I've also included a little piece of paper Crafting, which is a map of Louisville in 1870 if you want to start journaling your story. But that is one option you can buy. And so I took one out because I want you to see the strips and just all the colors that are available in this kit. And for those of you who already have a collection of fabric, you know, this may not be something that you need. Don't worry, you know, you can just buy the PDF and be on your way. But if you're just starting in your quilt adventure and you don't have a huge selection of fabric, this is, you know, this is beautiful. This is something I would have loved to have had when I was starting out. Some pieces are different. There are different lengths based on the amount you would need. Lots of turkey reds, lots of greens, just lots of everything that you need. So that is an option to buy the Part 1 kit. And that's going to be for $75 on my website. All right. The next option is to buy Part 1 and 2 kit combined. And Part 1 and Part 2 kit includes all the fabrics I just showed you and the border fabric of your choice. So if you preferred the blue for the border, this kit has the blue and then the additional reds that you need. So you would purchase that. I also have the fabrics and a green border option. Now the border has been hand cut by me to the exact width that you need and the length that you need to use to finish this project. So you'll have 4 strips of border in these kits. And the Part 1-2 combo kit is $100. Okay? There are those of you out there who have fabric galore, you kind of like this idea and you need just a little start to get you going. I have pre-cut hexagon packets in the print colors, probably one of each of these fabrics in the kit, pre-cut into a hexagon with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you can embellish and add to this from your own collection if you want to just get a taste of the 1870s. And I believe that is $20 on my website. And then I also have the shirtings that you would need for your path pre-cut if you want to add some of these to your work, or you just want to have some pre-cut to get you going because it makes life a tiny bit easier. I also have the papers, the 1-inch hexagon papers that you need sold separately on the website, and the templates that I had specially made for this project. So the templates are what you would need to cut out the hexagons from your strips. Now, you don't have to have the template. As you know, in my free tutorials that I've offered on how to get going with hexagons, you know, I've given you options on how to cut, whether you have the template or not. So that's what I'm so excited to share with you and get you started on your journey. If you want to join me with this medallion, Trousseau medallion quilt for Corliss, I would love to have you. You can stop at any time. If you only want 2 frames, or maybe you just want to make the center, that's fine. You can stop at any time and you can go all the way out with me. Each frame that I design is going to teach you a new skill and give you some new information. If you're a confident beginner and you did the Mary 1840 project, I am making the instructions for this super granular. I am talking you through this so that you can be a success. If you're experienced and you find that information is just more than you need, skip over it, you know, and you already have in your mind how you would construct this, skip over it and go for it. you know, everyone learns differently and everyone develops their own way of doing things. And there really isn't a right or wrong way. I'm just sharing with you the way I did it and the way I felt would be the most successful. So I'm so excited. I can't wait to launch this, and it should be, at the time of this video being published, it should be on my website and ready for you to purchase. If it sells out and you really want a kit, message me. I will provide more. I'm trying to gauge interest before I go on with this. So thank you for joining me on Mary, and I'm so excited. I have a couple other things to share with you from my shop. Before I stop, I do want to hold this up and show it to you because I think, you know, photos and real life are different. You know, I'm not afraid of color. I love color. I loved the colors of the 1870s. We sometimes think that people in the 1800s only liked brown and drab colors. Oh no, they liked color. So, you know, I inserted the picture because it's getting big, and you can see this is growing, and you know, after a few rounds it's going to start looking like it could cover the foot of a bed, and eventually, I don't know how big this will get because I haven't quite gotten there yet, but it actually might, you know, fit a full or a queen, I don't know, maybe a king. And once you understand the concept, you can keep going. So yeah, I wanted to share that with you. The last thing I want to share with you is something that I put together for the summer, and it's a continuation of kind of, I don't know if it's going to be a series, but something that I've just had so much fun doing. I've talked a lot about sewing baskets and early work baskets, and I started making tiny needlework baskets, and last year I did one for Christmas for the holidays, and this year I'm offering a summer version. I want to show you the paper inside. This is made by Robert LaHaye. Can you see inside there? It's little children playing in the garden, and it's just delightful. I had so much fun putting these together. Every step, every item is just, you know, something I think about a lot and decide on over time, and it's just really fun. So this is my summer in the garden needlework basket. And of course, if you saw on Instagram, I posted a video of the pincushion, which is almost like a bright, juicy blueberry. And so that goes in the little basket. That comes in the little basket. A waxer, which is beautiful. And when you get it, you'll see it has a flower vine on it. So it's a teeny tiny little waxer to fit in your needlework basket. A needle book, and the image on the front is from a Berlin work hand-painted chart that I own, and I took a motif off of it to create this. It's also the image on the tag that you get in the when this is packaged, so that goes in the little basket. And then the thread this time is something that I couldn't resist. It's perlé on little tiny wooden spools. Now perlé is a little bit heavier weight than 103, and I'll talk more about perlé and its uses. It's great for embellishing embroidery or doing blanket stitch on applique on quilts, but there are also uses for cross stitch as well. So I've got two little teeny tiny, and then a cherry blossom to finish it off. And if you bought the little Christmas basket, you know that I was offering teeny tiny Bowen scissors, and I think I might have a couple left in the shop, but anyway, so cute. So there are a few of these left, and thank you so much everyone for your love and support and just your encouragement. I just endeavor to provide happiness and joy and fun stitching goodness to keep us all, you know, just in a good place. So next time I hope to have some fully finished objects to show with you. Some of those little stitches I showed you earlier need to be fully finished, and hopefully a new start for Sampler September. And of course, there'll be another update on Corliss, and I'm so excited. I hope you will contact me if you have questions about the Corliss project. If you decide you're in, I want to hear from you. I love your comments. I love knowing where you are with your project. There are people who are just trying hexagons, and there are people who are just starting the Mary project. And of course, I love to hear about your cross-stitch projects as well, and any other textile endeavors that you undertake. So I will see you soon. Summer is kind of on the downhill now. We're heading, I feel like fall's coming. I don't know, it's around the corner. So until I see you again, make time for stitching. Bye-bye, friends.